Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So today's video is definitely going to be an interesting one. We're going to look at an article archiving some of the reports on the Pokemon craze from back in the 90s. In particular, some of the concern that schools, parents, and even psychiatrists had about the violence being portrayed from that franchise. Now, the reason we're getting nostalgic with this sort of stuff and looking at this outrage from the 90s is that I believe, like many others, that these sort of calls for censorship have come full circle. They have returned once again in the past couple of years, and in a strange twist, it is not old soccer moms and Karens calling for these bans and censorship. It's actually primarily Zoomers who are calling for this, and it's a very strange thing to see. Now, for a lot of people, this was expected over the last couple of years. A lot of products, mainly Japanese media, have been censored, and that censorship applauded by people on places like Twitter because it's targeting things like fan service, because they don't like anime or fan service coming from Japanese products, so they sit by and cheer on those acts of censorship. Now, me and a lot of other people have not only disliked that censorship for our general reasons, but we've also warned those people that the censorship is not just going to stop with some anime titty, it's going to keep evolving to the point where we see other forms of content getting criticized and eventually banned, like violence in video games, for example. And that slippery slope has sloped, because recently we've seen a lot of outrage over GTA. Yes, in a recent video I covered outrage from primarily Zoomers on Twitter who are complaining about violent themes in games like Grand Theft Auto. You know, color me shocked when the game that's named after a literal felony would have violence in it. Yes, but people are genuinely saying the old argument and rhetoric used to hear from the 90s that violent themes in video games are causing real-life violence in people and increasing those tendencies. Now, that's something we used to hear from 90s soccer moms, but now we're hearing it from Zoomers. So we really have come full circle. And in the spirit of that, we're going to read this article covering the transition from Pokemon over into the United States and the boom that franchise caused in the late 90s. I believe the first games came out in 1998, and the reaction was huge. Pokemon was everything, not just the games, but the trading card games as well. If you were around during that time, even if you were just a tiny kid, you knew how big that explosion into the West was. So let's look at some of the archived news reports from the late 90s when schools and parents started to raise concern about this franchise. So this article is titled A Brief History of Pokemon Getting Banned from Middle Schools. Now, I don't know if you guys are boomer enough like me, but yes, Pokemon and other games like Magic the Gathering that I also played at the time were banned from my school. The schools could not compete with their entertainment value, okay? Their classrooms just could not compete. And you know what? They had to ban it because they knew we would just be playing and using our cards all day and trading and having fun. So they had to put a stop to that. But this article goes to talk about some of the explosion into the West and the concerns from some principals. Here's an old article from 1999. Here's a quote from a principal saying, "They seem to be the latest craze and the children are beginning to become obsessed by them," said the principal. The principal at Colonial School, Finelli, has banned trading between pupils because some of our younger kids were getting suckered out of their more valuable cards. The cards are banned entirely at Prospect Hill School, where Principal Richard Lamato said, "We were having instances in which the children were losing them and getting very upset." Sounds like a bit of a skill issue, if you ask me. These kids just weren't knowledgeable. They weren't reading up on the game and the material. They were getting scammed out of their stuff. Rip Bozo, sorry for those kids. But things got even more interesting because people were also reporting that in various places there were actual stabbings and physical assaults and robberies directly related to Pokemon cards. And whether it's in schools, outside of schools, these sorts of actions have nothing to do with the product itself, right? The fact that people are willing to stab other people over a trading card game doesn't say much about the trading card game. It says a lot about the people. And even going back to the kids being distracted in classes and things like that, that's a discipline issue. That's not the card game's fault or Pokemon's fault. That's the fault of parents and teachers who have not disciplined kids properly. But moving forward, I thought this news report from MSNBC from 1999 was pretty interesting to look at. Once again, raising a lot of the rhetoric that we're seeing repeated in the year 2023. So let's start here.
So what exactly is a Pokemon? Cute, cuddly characters who become supercharged so they can fight their enemies. But some experts say the entire Pokemon phenomenon is the enemy.
Some experts. If this was played in 2023, this expert would be some Twitter user with 50 mental illnesses listed in their bio, but nonetheless, let's continue.
In my opinion, parents should not let their kids watch Pokemon, play Pokemon, buy Pokemon cards, have anything whatsoever to do with Pokemon, because the message is violence.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, keep Pokemon away from the kids because the main message behind the franchise is violence. Yes, that was a real psychiatrist making that point. And you know the old saying, you F around and you find out? Well, she basically did. Her entire career was ruined because of that report, okay? Her actions here telling parents to stay away from this and that the message is violence, her health grades rating is still 1.8 out of 5. Not good. Her career literally never recovered. And also, a lot of parents just didn't have a problem with this even back then.
Many parents disagree.
It's really, I think, an okay thing for the kids because they learn to save their allowance, to budget for it, and they learn to trade and be kind of reasonable with their friends.
Based mom, W mom. But yeah, I mean, there are things to be learned out of that. And guess what those all reflect on? Those things she just said. Discipline. All those things have to do with discipline. Again, if you're having a disciplined child playing games like Pokemon, they'll do it responsibly. They won't be stabbing each other over it. It's a discipline issue. But there's one more thing I want to look at in this old MSNBC report. They brought on this guy who actually went out and watched Pokemon because he's being told by people like that psychiatrist that there's violence and the message is violence. And he actually went out and watched Pokemon to see what this message was all about. And of course, he got a completely different message. So let's play this.
How old are they? My son who's into it is 8, and he's walked me through it, and it's all about battles, is it not?
Not really. In fact, I got to tell you, I get this episode today, Pokemon Friends, and it's about...
The Pokemon, yeah. Dude came with receipts. Big respect to this guy right here, by the way.
About abused Pokemon that aren't treated well by their trainers. Because in the Pokemon world, in the age of 10, you get to be able to go to Pokemon school and be given a beginner Pokemon to go out with and capture other Pokemon.
Now, okay,
but some kids are, wait, I gotta tell you, but some kids are bad and treat their Pokemon bad and they're abused. This is a great episode about abused characters that have to go to a special resort to get better and meet better kids to grow with.
Now, the next question.
Do any of you guys remember that episode? Because I definitely did. I hadn't thought of that episode in many, many years. But hearing that, I do remember that episode. There's like an island of abused Pokemon where if the trainers are not treating them right, pushing them too hard in battle, they are sent off to an island to rehabilitate themselves and then get reassigned to a proper trainer who will treat them right. But basically, this whole thing sums up to you have a psychiatrist coming on here making baseless claims that violence is the message of Pokemon and that's going to make kids violent, encourage them to be violent. And we're seeing those same exact arguments, those baseless arguments being repeated in the year 2023. And mark my words, it's only going to get worse from here because there's just an absolute love of censorship right now. Anything that's weird or different or edgy or in any way threatening to the little bubble that these people live in, they want it censored, banned, and removed entirely. But that's going to do it for this little trip down nostalgia lane. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's a very interesting topic, so please feel free to share all of your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time.